Good morning, hockey fans. A lot to get into from last night. My partner over there, Kobe Cohen, won another Bucci Gross overtime challenge with the Carter Verhaeghe OT winner. But the games last night were incredible all the way through. The Panthers, another big win. The Rangers, another big win. And then the Predators get back into the series, as well as the Colorado Avalanche. So a lot to talk about today. This is Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Betway. If you're going to place a bet, bet on Betway. Please play responsibly. And remember, you must be 19 years of age or older. Colby, first things first, that Florida Tampa game, you got to watch most of it. I watched a little bit of it because I was at the Ranger Capitals game. But oh my God, man, is Tampa, are we concerned here now that they're down 2-0 or headed back home and they have a chance still?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely concerned. I'm never counting Tampa Bay out, especially when they're going home, a place that is an incredibly difficult environment to play in the playoffs. I think Tampa Bay Lightning fans are actually probably one of the more underrated fan bases. I mean, they sell out their arena all year, and then come playoff time, it's just like a big party at Amalie Arena, all in and around the rink. So people come in loud and they come in on fire. So I am concerned though, because I picked Tampa to win this series. And the biggest concern that I have is that their score, you're giving up 2 and 3 goals. It should be enough to win. And it's not enough to win against the way with Bobrovsky. Like the saves that he made last night, it almost is like, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do against this guy? Mm-hmm. I thought Tampa deserved a better fate last night. I really did. After the first period, I would say Tampa played better the rest of the game. The Florida Panthers lose Bennett, which was a huge loss. He took a shot, and it looked like it hit him in this part of his hand, sort of on the outside of the glove. It's not a lot of padding there. There is a decent amount of padding there. And it's funny, I just got a brand new pair of gloves. One of the Flyers equipment guys hooked me up with a brand new pair of Bauer gloves, and they've definitely changed the way they're padding gloves with that extra pad on the front. I didn't have those in the gloves when I was still kind of playing. That was just coming in, but the padding here it's just not great, and that seemed to be a pretty big loss for Florida, losing Bennett. Forsling got dinged up. He came back, but he didn't fully look like himself. And let's just show the save that Bob made. I mean, this has got to be save of the year, right?
Everyone's seen it by now, I think, right? Like in the press box during the Ranger game, we saw it and we were like, holy shit. Like, how the hell did he do that? And it's not like Dumba could have even done anything really different.
Yeah, I mean, look, you see an empty net like that and you think you're just able to dunk it in. I guess you maybe could bear down a little bit more and
get your hips around it.
I don't know. Honestly, but like, you just think you have an easy little chip shot there.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be the save of the year, right? I mean, is there anything like that in hockey this year?
I think that could be the save of the decade. Like, his back was to the fucking play. Are you kidding me? Like Dumba, I mean, if I'm in that position, I'm thinking there's no way in hell he's stopping this. I don't know what you do differently if you're in that position, if you're Matt Dumba. I really don't. Like, the game happens so fast. We could sit here and say, yeah, maybe you could bear down a little bit, or whatever, or try to get to
Monday morning
try to get to your forehand, but I actually don't think I've seen a better save ever. I mean, Bobrovsky literally did not see the puck.
Well, and you think of the timing. It's
2-2 game, right? The second
2-2. I believe the third. No, was it the second?
I think the second. Yeah.
Okay, so it was in the second period.
But
he also made
the game.
Listen, he made a number of saves in the third period too. There was a breakaway that he stopped. I mean, Tampa looked good last night. They really did. And when you can come out and play well, and get good goaltending, like Vasilevsky was good last night. He also made a number of big saves, and you're still not coming up with a win. I mean, I'm pretty sure late in the third, Ekblad had a breakaway, which Vasilevsky made look pretty easy. It was shorthanded. Game 3 is do or die, and I'm stating the obvious with that.
Yeah.
If you get that series to 2-1 and you have another home game and you're Tampa, you feel like, okay, we've been in this situation before. We have enough experience that we can dig ourselves out of it. But you look at the back end for Tampa, they've got guys out late in the game. Crozier's playing, because Perbix is out, who's still relatively, I don't want to say unproven, but certainly new to the playoffs. And now you're going even further down your depth chart. They really miss Sergachev. I mean, they just do. He's another threat offensively. He's good defensively. I'd say of all my picks for the first round, Tampa's the one that I'm most worried about, partially because I had them winning a couple rounds, but I'm concerned. I am.
Well, also you think about the starts that Tampa has had to these two games as well, right? Like game one, I think they go the first 10 minutes without even getting a shot on goal. Florida dominates the opening period. Then game two last night, all Florida again, more of the shots like 14-1 at some point. Florida goes up 2-0. Like Tampa has to find a way to wake up here out of the gate, or else they're going to just, fall behind right away again. And you can't play against the Florida Panthers team when you're behind. Like Tampa has to find a way to try to score the first goal here because they're just going to keep.
Listen,
you don't think so?
Well, but I mean, listen, they came back from 2-0 last night.
Yeah, but you can't keep just fighting your way back every game.
The thing though is like when you look at Tampa and they're down, they don't change the way that they play. They don't cheat because there's just so much belief because of all the firepower. Look, no team has more like star firepower than Tampa. They may not be the deepest, but Kucherov, Point, Stamkos, like you've got a bunch of 40-goal men across.
You're taking that over Makar, McKinnon, Rantanen?
I would say it's pretty even, and I might even tip my cap to Tampa Bay in that situation because Makar is a defenseman, and what about Hedman? Are we just going to forget about Victor Hedman, who's probably the best all-around defenseman there is? So, and then you have Vasilevsky on that. I mean, So I'm just saying, like, they're never worried about scoring goals. They're never panicking. You see Coop do his interviews, and that's the pulse of his team. They're like, they don't ever feel out of it. And that's kind of a right that they've earned, by being who they've been for the last 4 and 5 years, really almost a decade now, the way that they've competed and pushed. So I'm concerned.
Since you just said in the chat, Hedman equals Makar. I don't know if I agree with that. I think Kale is a much bigger threat offensively than Victor Hedman would be.
Hedman's,
I'm not taking credit away from Hedman, but I think
I probably would side more there with Singsy because I just think that maybe dynamic. Yeah, is he as dynamic as Kale Makar? No, but no, he's not as dynamic. But I mean, he creates offense every shift that he's out on the ice. I think he's a better defender than Kale.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But we said offensive threats. We were talking about.
I think Kale's is actually a good defender. I just would say that that Hedman probably takes less chances because you see Makar down below the goal line all game offensively.
And he's quick enough to get back.
And
not that Hedman's slow.
No, no. I've been at ice level with Hedman. He only needs 3 strides for Kale's 4, right? So I don't know. Like if you're giving me either of those two in their prime, well, I know Kale's
we haven't really seen Makar's prime yet. He's like just now entering it.
Come on. He's in his prime. Let's be
honest.
He's
fucking like 25, 26.
Right. And that's when you get into your prime. I mean, you got to realize like
that's what I just said. He's getting into it right now.
We're seeing him at his prime right now. I'm Hedman is the guy who's into his almost mid-30s. I think Hedman's a 90 birth year, which would put him at like 33 years old, maybe 34 at this point. So that's a hard one. I really, Victor Hedman, I think has been the best all-around complete defenseman in the NHL for a long time. I really do. So
I was just saying offensive weapons. Like that's because that was the topic of conversation. Singsy now is saying offense, yes. Overall, I think they're equals, which they are. They're number 1 defenseman on very important teams.
That's why I'm saying you put them up against each other in their best years. And like, maybe you have to wait another 5 years to do that, see what Kale does over the next 5 years. But look, Kale wasn't as dominant this year as he was the previous year. So that kind of comes and goes a little bit, but we'll see what happens in this Florida Panthers series, because right now this whole playoff Bob thing, even last year we saw playoff Bob after Lions started the playoffs after dragging his team in. You just kind of never know what you're going to get with Bob. And here now becomes the question, okay? If you're playing in the gold medal game against Team Canada or Team USA and you're Russia, you've got to pick. Is it Bob or is it Vasilevsky? One game for a gold medal. Who is it between those two? And we want to hear from I want to hear in the chat as well. I've got the chat right up here on my cell phone in front of me, so we'll see what everybody thinks as they start pumping into the chat. But who are you taking, Johnny?
Well, Vic just said to include Igor as well, so thank you to that, Vic. But I'm still taking Vasilevsky no matter what. I still think game on the line. We've seen Vasilevsky do it so many times in game sevens. I mean, his pedigree speaks for himself. I'm taking Vasilevsky 10 times out of 10, I think, and listen, Bobrovsky, sure, he's been incredible over these past recent stretches, but I don't think there's been a long enough consistency for me to be comfortable with Bobrovsky even over Shesterkin, to be honest. Shesterkin in game sevens has been lights out as well. I'm not saying Bobrovsky hasn't come up in big games, but I think the recency bias plays a little bit of a factor here when talking about Bobrovsky. What do you think? What's the chat saying?
It's you're getting a little bit of everything. You're seeing a bunch of people are jumping in with Shesterkin. I think because we probably have some Rangers fans that watch this show and listen to this show. I would say Vasilevsky, and I don't think it's really a hard thing for me, just based on the consistency and the way that he's played. And I personally think his team is nowhere near as deep as Tampa's team. Which is not his fault, but one game elimination, who am I going to sleep better with? Probably them. And as you see, Vic's got the defensive pairings. They actually went 11-7 last night. So Crozier was in the lineup as well. They didn't do
rough.
It's just, look, it's not necessarily you see 65 Maxwell Crozier. He's listed as the fourth line left wing. He's actually a defenseman, so they're playing with a little bit of a shortened bench, which I don't think they mind doing up front because, you're going to get Point and Kucherov and Hagel. I mean, they're top two lines. I love playoff Anthony Cirelli too. He seems to really go to another level in the playoffs, but I would say
had such a good scoring chance too last night. Oh, I wanted him to fucking bury Chaffee.
Yeah,
he had a great one-on-one chance
right on the doorstep. Yeah.
He
looked like he might have been gripping his stick a little bit too tight there. The eyes might have got a little
first
wide.
Couple playoff games.
Yeah, listen, I think I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But we'll see what happens. It's obviously now looks like if Tampa's going to win, it's going to go the distance, which I think a lot of people assumed anyway would happen.
Didn't we both have Tampa in 7?
I'm pretty sure I had Tampa in 7. I'm not sure if you did or didn't, but like I said, I'm concerned. I think it's going to be difficult to come back down 2, but I think if there's a team that can do it, again, I think there's true belief in that locker room just based on what they've done over the course of, the last number of years.
And before we move on to the next topic of conversation, Carter Verhaeghe, Mr. Clutch, Mr. Playoffs. He moves into, or he's tied now, third all time with the most overtime goals in postseason history. Number 1, Kobe's boy, Joe Sakic with 8. Number 2, Maurice Richard with 6, and tied for third, Verhaeghe, Glenn Anderson, Patrick Kane, and Corey Perry, all with 5. But here's a stat that I think is really interesting, and this is from.
I'm kind of surprised Justin Williams isn't on that list. I thought he had. Maybe
I think he just scores like game winners.
Just in game, like regulation game winners. Yeah.
He's Mr. Game 7. But Jazz put out the stat. Sakic did it in 172 games. So 8 overtime goals in 172 games. Richard did it in 132 games. That's 6 in 132. Anderson had 5 in 225 games. Perry in 197 games. Kane in 143 games. Verhaeghe has 5 overtime goals in just 47 games. Insane. This guy is Mr. Clutch. Big time goal for the Panthers. Big time guess by you, Colby. Do you get another Bucci Gross shirt or what?
No, I don't take the swag anymore. It's just fun
No.
to play. I mean, look, that goal too. I mean, the patience to hold that and then tuck that thing up and under the bar. I mean, that was big time, and there was chaos around the net. I was kind of hoping maybe there would be some goalie interference or something, or maybe offsides. I don't know. I was kind of hanging around, hoping something would happen. But as always, Matthew Tkachuk is in on the battle, creating a turnover on the wall. Pitchforking a puck into the middle, doing his thing. So. Good hockey. To me, that's just been the best series as far as keeping you on the edge of your seat from what I said the other day for what I look for in these playoff series. And then the last thing I do want to say, because there's been a bunch of discourse. Did you see Singsy, the Butchie overtime challenge? Did you see Biz copied it exactly? Butchie was not pleased. The last thing I want to say is that I personally put Hedman up there with the great defenseman of all time. I really do. I think, I think he's, a version of Nick Lidstrom. And Lindstrom was not necessarily the Cale Makar flash offensively, but he was just the best in all three zones. And I think that's a lot of what Victor Hedman is. And again, it shouldn't, Victor Hedman probably grew up favorite player being Nicholas Lindstrom, being a Swede. So I remember playing Hedman. He would play up with the 89 birth year in international tournaments. And I mean, you could just tell they would say like, this kid is the next Nick Lidstrom. That's what we would hear about him as the scouting reports and the pre-scouts and whatnot. So let's go to your boys and keep moving along here. A game that I saw, but I saw in and out because I was focused more on that Panthers Lightning game. But you were boots on the ground at MSG, and you got to witness firsthand, Rempe taking a bad penalty and then Washington scoring a goal on it and getting some life. So I didn't see a whole lot of Rempe mania going on last night on social media.
They didn't score on the power play. That wasn't on the. I don't think that was on the Rempe penalty.
I thought they scored right after he elbowed a guy. I thought that he scored.
No, it was 5-on-5.
You're sure?
Yeah, positive.
Had he just come out of the box?
Maybe. I think the penalty might have been even after. I don't remember when the penalty was, but I know it was not a power play goal that they scored the first goal. They did have 2 power play goals last night, but it wasn't on Rempe's penalty because I knew that would be a fucking discussion today. But
you don't really watch the games when you're there, so are you sure?
Shut up. I hate when you fucking say that. Yes, there are times where I miss things because I'm, tweeting or checking a stat or something, but like I see 95% of the game. Like I will admit when there's things that I miss. But
so Strome's power play goal in the second didn't come when Rempe was in the box.
No, Rempe's penalty was in the first period.
Okay. Who was in the box for Strome's penalty? Do you know?
I don't remember. There were a lot of calls last night.
All right, go ahead. Talk about the game. I'll look it up.
So the Capitals had about as good as a start as you could have asked for. I thought, they came out buzzing. They were flying. They had like 5 shots in the first 2 minutes, really testing Shesterkin early on. They get that first goal from McMichael, a great play by TJ Oshie. And then, this is something that I actually.
Can we just talk about the fact that you're wrong? Because Rempe
I'm not wrong. It's a 5-on-5 goal.
Rempe took a penalty at 3:44 in the second period, and Dylan Strome.
You're right.
Dylan Strome scored a power play goal at 4:14 in the second period.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the first goal.
The power play goal. I said Rempe took a penalty. Okay, and Strome scored a power.
I'm wrong.
So I know like you're getting upset because I say you're missing the game, but like it sounds like you're missing the game.
I'm wrong.
So I'm just wondering what do you think about that? I mean, now a fourth liner is costing your team because he's taking penalties. Like, is he in the lineup for game 3?
There was fucking penalties all over the place last night. He's in the lineup for game 3.
He is in the lineup for game
3. Yes, there were penalties everywhere last night, and I'm wrong, and the chat is dunking on me now for it. But now I lost my train of thought. Just the game in general. Washington, I thought, played a much better game than game 1. You're so happy that you got me wrong. It's insane.
I mean, I knew it. I just wanted to go with the timestamps. I mean, I was watching this unfold last night.
Yeah.
But go ahead. Talk about the game. Give us how the game was.
Well, the Rangers score. What? The Rangers scored 2 power play goals. They scored a shorthanded goal. Washington kind of just shot themselves in the foot. Alexander Ovechkin had another tough game. That turnover to Mika Zibanejad, was kind of a dagger for them. Only 1 shot on goal. Carberry in the postgame talked about how much he's struggling, and there are a couple of things that stand out with Ovechkin. He said in the postgame at 5-on-5 in the power play, he should get 4 or 5 looks on a nightly basis, whether or not they go in. He's not getting those looks, whether that's a product of his matchup, whether that's a product of his line combination, whether he's playing a role in that himself. We've got to find a way to get him in spots where it's just him and Shesterkin, and he's within the top of the circle. So Ovechkin has not been noticeable at all, I feel like, in this series in the first 2 games. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that, but that's my takeaway. And yeah,
you're definitely right. I mean, he
don't kiss my ass now because you dunked on me before.
Is this really the path you want to take today?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
So Ovi has been a shell of himself. I mean, I think what you're seeing with Alexander Ovechkin is look, players slow down a little bit, and it's hard to just create all on your own. And he just doesn't have the offensive firepower around him that is needed to constantly put pressure and create. He needs people around him to put him in good spots. And I'm not saying he can't create on his own at all, but he's got 1 shot on goal in 2 games. And he, I hate to say he looks disinterested, but that's kind of how it comes off. I don't think that that's the case, because I just don't think that's who he is. Like, this is a guy who's an ultimate warrior and competitor, but they certainly don't have a chance. They don't have a chance with him having no goals through 2 games, right? Mm-hmm. Thank God Lafreniere hasn't scored a goal yet, because I'd be losing that bet to you. Yeah. And even with how bad Ovi's been, I'm still feeling okay about that bet, just because I don't see Lafreniere getting a ton of chances in the
he hasn't gotten many.
Watched. He seems to be playing a little physical, and he seems to be getting it on the forecheck, but I don't see him creating much offensively. Second assists. They're all second assists, which count. Yeah, they are. You can go look.
I know. I was thinking. Yeah.
And that, listen, I'm not discounting second assists. They're assists, but I'm just saying he's not creating a lot offensively. He's creating by finishing his hit, getting it on a forecheck, having a good stick. So, but hey, in the playoffs, you got to adapt. So I'm not even coming down on it. I'm just saying he hasn't. I'm not worried. I still think Ovi will get a goal in the series. I don't foresee him getting shut out through 4 games. But in this game, the biggest topic of conversation. What'd you say?
Victor said, "I wonder who tracks laugh stats more closely, Johnny or Kobe."
Oh yeah. Well, let's talk about the hit, because I saw even Singsy and Jeremiah and Twitter was going crazy about the hit. This was the thing that everybody talked about. They review it, they take everything off the board. The way the rule is written, it basically said that the head contact was the end result, and it was body contact that kind of resulted in a little bit of head contact. They talk about how Oshie's leaning forward a little bit and lunging, kind of putting himself in that situation a little bit. But I mean, look, what did you think? I mean, try to take your Homer hat off for a second and give us an honest opinion, because I'm curious your thoughts on the hit. You saw it live.
Well, here's the first thing too. That hit was definitely premeditated. Oshie and Panarin have been going at it all game. Oshie was definitely in Panarin's head. And Kobe, you and I know, just like everyone else, when a guy is pissing you off in a game, you take a number. Panarin knew he had a chance to light Oshie up, and he did. And when I saw it live, I thought, oh shit, that is not a good hit. Like, live in action, I was like, that's going to be reviewed for a major for sure. Now seeing the replays, like, I tweeted right away. I saw it. I was like, Panarin just took a run at Oshie. Like, that's how I said it. That's how I phrased it. That's how I felt about it. Now that I've seen the replays, the first angle, Vic, we can bring that up again. The first view of this hit, where the Oshie's back is kind of to the camera and his head whips back, that angle to me is bad. But then when you see the other angles of it, like this angle to me, Oshie's head.
It looks like the first 2 or 3 points of contact are his hip, his back, his butt, and then his head.
No, but that angle looks like the head. This angle looks to me like Oshie's head hits Panarin's back after he's through the hit. This angle right here looks like it's head first.
Yeah,
So
but
that
listen,
angle I thought was
they've
bad.
got 35 angles that they're looking at, and they're looking at the iPad. Toronto's talking to them about it. I mean, I don't know. Like, here's the other thing, and I see a lot of people talking about this in the chat, and they're saying like Oshie was a rat. He's been this, he's been that. Look, Oshie plays with an edge. He plays with an edge year round. I mean, Oshie's, you know how I kind of talk about Jimmy Vesey for being a guy that like you wouldn't know is incredibly tough, a guy you would not want to fight on the ice or in a bar. I put TJ Oshie in that category as well.
Yeah.
He's a guy who is, nails and he'll play dirty and he'll play in the gray and then he'll back it up, because he'll throw hits like that too. I mean, Oshie's been on the other side of questionable hits, a number of times, throughout his career. Right. So he definitely is trying to drag his team into it is what I see out of Oshie. Yeah. I think he's realizing that they're undermanned, they're outgunned. How do I get my guys emotionally into a series that we have really no chance to win? They're not getting great goaltending. They're getting decent goaltending, but I thought the Roslovic goal was soft, and I told you that earlier. It's a good shot, but to me, it's still a soft goal that the goaltender has to save, especially because he's the opposite hand. I think that really cost him on that shot. But, look, I think that, when you see different angles of that hit, you got to remember the other thing. These aren't happening in slow motion. Slow motion always looks like murder in hockey hits. It always looks like murder in slow motion. So you have to be careful that you don't base your whole opinion off watching it in slow motion. It creates a little bit of a different picture and narrative from reality of what happened, in my opinion. So I didn't really have the biggest issue with it. I thought, again, that
I thought playoff hockey, it's fine. Regular season, maybe it's a penalty.
Here's the question, though, that I'm going to propose to you is, and this is where I think Jeremiah's pissed and other fans would be pissed, is if that was Tom Wilson who laid the exact same hit, are they calling it based on his reputation, based on his past? Are they going to make a call there? Do they give him 5 in that situation? I say yes, they do. And that's probably where people would be pissed.
Tom Wilson had a similar hit in game 1 on Mika Zibanejad, no call. And it was late. The only difference to me with those 2 hits, watch this hit right here. Tom Wilson finishes right up high on Mika Zibanejad, 2 seconds late. He doesn't have the puck. Panarin, sure, you can maybe say it was blindsided a little bit more than this Wilson hit was, but there was no call on that one. And I hate that argument of like, if Rempe did this, if Wilson did this. We were talking about the Rempe hit on Nathan Bastian, and everyone was saying on that hit, keep your fucking head up if you're Bastian. Why is Oshie any different? Pick your fucking head up.
The hit that we just showed from Wilson to Zibanejad, I didn't have any issue with that hit.
Yeah, but no everyone else was, there's so many people, if you're not going to call one, don't call the other. I think that, to me, those are similar hits. I really do. The way that they were actually used, they both come up with the shoulder. And listen, if you're TJ Oshie there, your head has to be up. What is Panarin supposed to do? Just let him go?
Well, and Oshie stayed in the game. He didn't come out of the game. He didn't lay on the ice.
That's not true. A spotter actually called him off.
He gets pulled, but he comes right back out.
But that's the issue Carberry had. Carberry said, if a spotter is forcing the guy to come out of the game, how are we not calling a penalty?
Well, it happened to Walker, too, in the Colorado game. I'm pretty sure that Walker got pulled by a spotter in the Colorado game when he took that sort of weird hit in the third. I mean, we'll get to Jets Avs next. I think that's next on our list. But here's the other thing that I'm going to say that I keep seeing, and I'm seeing it from a lot of Caps fans. I think I even saw, I saw Singzi tweet it. I saw Jeremiah tweet it. People are kind of calling out Rempe for not fighting last night. Look, I personally have no issue in a series that you're in full control of when really look, the Caps came out in the first period yesterday and they threw their best shot. They really did. And they get out of that period not in great shape, even though they probably carried play in the first, or at least a large chunk of the first. They got on the board early. They're feeling better about themselves, and it still wasn't enough.
Down 2-1.
Right? Exactly. And so if you're Rempe and you're watching this game unfold and you're ahead and you're kind of controlling the play more than you're not, why are you dropping your gloves? Why are you giving Washington an opportunity to feed off that momentum? Like I get why you're gonna call him out and chirp him, but situationally, I actually think smart by Rempe to keep his gloves on last night. Now, maybe next game is different early on. But even that, like, why are you going to give Washington down 0-2 a spark of life by agreeing to fight? I don't know. I mean, I think situationally it's smart by Rempe it's a good decision.
No, I fully agree. There's been a lot of situations. I know, yes, he took that penalty, and there's been situations where Rempe could have done his antics that he's done a little bit earlier in the year, but it seems like he's just learned a little bit. And Laviolette's been on him. He said he's had a lot of conversations with him. What he was smiling at in the chat.
I'm just laughing. Jeremiah said he wants no smoke from the boogeyman. Look, I think if Wilson wants to fight Rempe, then probably if I'm Rempe, I'll do it because that's a good trade-off for the New York Rangers. Tom Wilson is a valuable player. I don't mind if Tom Wilson sits in the box for 5 minutes with Matt Rempe. That's a good trade-off for the New York Rangers. But I wouldn't fight McElrath. I mean, I played against McElrath quite a bit when he was in Hartford and in the Rangers system. I was in Providence. He's a tough customer. I mean, I've seen him drop the gloves a couple of times. I've mixed it up with him a couple of times. He's definitely a tough customer. So, and Rempe hasn't been a great fighter. I mean, he's fun, he's electric, but like it's not like he's been killing it when he's been dropping his gloves. It's been mostly the other way around, actually.
Yeah.
He's probably taken more hard shots than he's given. So it's a story though, and it's developing, and the pot seems like it's boiling over.
But I want to ask you one more thing before we wrap it up, because listen, we could talk about Matt Rempe just comes up all the time. He's such an easy guy to talk about, but like last night, there's no reason really to talk about Rempe. I feel like he didn't really have the biggest impact on the game. He played fine, but
how many minutes did he have? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not saying that just to shit on you. So
I don't know off the top of my head, but I want to ask you just about Artemi Panarin. Hit aside, I thought he really just answered the bell physically a little bit outside of that hit. He took a beating last night. Last night was the most physical game I've ever seen Artemi Panarin playing, in my opinion. And I want to just get your take on a player of his caliber not shying away from it. Because whether you like the hit or you didn't like the hit, the fact that he threw the hit, I think says a lot about just his ability right now in these playoffs to not be afraid of the physicality like we saw last year. And I think, these first 2 games have been very promising if you're a Ranger fan. I know he only has the 1 goal, but the fact that he's on the board, the fact that he's not shying away from all these physicalities, I worded that wrong.
It took Kucherov a couple of years of playing in the playoffs to realize that he had to change the way he played. He had to play with more of a heaviness to his game that now I think Kucherov plays with all season in and out. And it takes time. And I think seeing that hit by Panarin, it's a statement that he's just,
he's not taking any shit.
He's upped his level. He's heard the noise. He's heard the discourse. He's heard the chatter, and he kind of gets it that, you're not going to score every night in the playoffs. And we talk about B games and, we talk about what are you doing for your team if you're not scoring a goal that night, if you're a 50 goal scorer, 49 to be exact, but 50 if you count playoffs. But I think he's contributing. And look, the team that wins the cup every year, guys who are goal scorers block shots and throw hits and, kill penalties and have ice bags all over themselves because they play way more physical. That's just playoffs, man. Playoffs hurt. It hurts to win in the playoffs. And I think it shows it shows well for the Rangers, because if Panarin was quiet, that affects the whole rest of the top 6 in New York, right? Then Zibanejad isn't going quite as much because there's more focus on him. Kreider is kind of the wingman who does a little dirty work but scores around the front of the net. Lafreniere is still very new to playing meaningful hockey in a meaningful role, not being on the outside kind of looking in like he has, in previous playoffs from a role standpoint. So it bodes well. But look, they're beating up on the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, of course.
Let's not give them the Stanley Cup just yet. All right.
Of course.
Let's go.
I actually, what'd you say?
Go ahead. Ask your last question and
Just
let's move to the West.
last question, because I know you love Braden Point. Can Vinny Trocheck be that for the Rangers? Because I'm starting to see a little bit of similarities.
No,
you don't think so?
I don't think there's a hardness to Vinny's
You don't think
game.
so?
I just don't. I think
Really?
I think
fucking scrappy, man.
He's
climbing.
Scrappy. I think he's climbing, and I agree. He's scrappy. Listen, I played with Vinny in San Antonio in the American Hockey League. Like, he is scrappy. Like, again, you're talking about a guy who scores 50 goals every year, who scores major points in playoffs, who scores overtime goals.
That's why I said starting. Can he be that?
But how old's Vinny Trocheck? In his mid 30s? 30. That's it? Are you sure he's not 31, 32?
Pretty sure he's 30 on the dot.
Okay. So, Johnny, you are who you are at 30. He's finally showing more in the playoffs. Because look, in the playoffs last year, he took a lot of heat.
Yeah,
Vinny Trocheck.
Only 1 goal in 7 games.
So I do really like Vinny Trocheck, and I he's a guy that I root for. I also love the fact that it looks like Freddie Mercury when he slicks his hair back with that stash of his. I think when Freddie Mercury went to the short haircut, it's literally what Vinny looks like. And but I don't think those are comparable types of players. I really don't. No.
Okay. Let's get into the next series. And you watched most of this. I only caught the third period because I was getting home from the Ranger game. But the Winnipeg Jets, Colorado Avalanche, huge bounce back win for the Avs. Georgiev, a ton of big stops. I don't know if he shut haters up necessarily, but on the flip side, Connor Hellebuck, what the fuck is going on there? Because 11 goals against in 2 games, that is not the goalie that we saw all year long. So what do you make of this Winnipeg Jet situation? Because I think, 2 days ago, we're talking about how, this series might be easier for Winnipeg, but now, Colorado tied at 1-1 going back home. This is they've
been the best team at home all year, right? So this is a big night for Georgiev. And what was interesting in the third period was watching him sort of crouch over and talk to himself between whistles. The ESPN director who was directing the game last night, actually Bob Frattaroli was directing the game, a guy that does our Frozen Four, so I know him well, and he really understands the emotions of the game. And they kept showing Georgiev hunched over, talking to himself. Who knows what these guys were at, what he was actually saying to himself. But I didn't have a problem with either goal that he let in. I thought the Avs just continued to come. They buckled down defensively. They weren't perfect by any means, but they're never going to be perfect. And look, I was the only one out of the entire Daily Faceoff crew that picked Colorado. It was, I think, 8 people. I was the only one who picked Colorado. Now, look,
because I convinced you. Colorado, the West runs through Colorado.
And then you bailed on it.
And then I bailed on them.
But what I would say is I'm not sitting here saying I think this is an easy path now for Colorado. This series is going to be difficult. I think Morrissey was, again, really good last night. I mean, he's just becoming more and more dynamic at the blue line with the puck as he sees other guys do it. It's like he's like, okay, I can do it too.
He had that one play in the third period, right? He comes off the wall and gets a good scoring chance on Georgiev, but he really shut the door, I thought, in that third period. Again, like I missed, the first 2, but the pace that Winnipeg plays with, I think, is a little bit underrated too, right? Like Colorado, we talk about being this incredibly explosive team, up and down the ice, and Winnipeg has kept up at least with them, right? From what I've seen, pace wise.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, but so I did, because look, when you really look at Colorado's lineup, it kind of reminds me of Tampa, because think of Tampa when they won cups, and then think of what started happening to Tampa's roster for the next couple of years. And that's kind of where we're at with the Colorado Avalanche. They don't have the same depth through their forward groups in their lineup that they previously did, especially with Drouin not in right now. You just have guys playing a little bit further up the lineup after the big guns. No Landeskog. Their D-core, they've got Caleb Jones and Jack Johnson on their third pair. Tell me that doesn't remind you of Tampa's third pair right now. Now, their third pair when they won the Stanley Cup was was Chernak, or it was Sergachev and Shattenkirk, or Chernak and Sergachev, and Shattenkirk would be up with Hedman. Like
McDonough was back there.
They had McDonough on that decor. They also, and they had Jan Ruda. And now they've got Lilberg, Crozier, and I forget the third guy.
Perbix, right?
Perbix is hurt right now. But my point just being the Colorado team being a little bit depleted. There you go. Lilberg, DeHaan, and Crozier as your third guys. Like it reminds me of what Colorado's got right now on the back end with Johnson and Caleb Jones. They were both in Chicago previously, playing on basically an AHL team in Chicago, so there's similarities to the way Colorado's roster has kind of gotten picked apart. They bring in Parise at a low number deal, and they're trying to milk whatever they can get out of him. And Tampa did that with Corey Perry.
On the first line now.
you could see some of the similarities, but at the end of the day, it's just McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen. They get going downhill, and if they get saves, if they can get 900 goaltending, like B+ goaltending, they're hard to beat. And also, what the fuck's going on with Connor Hellebuck? I mean, that goal off the face-off, I mean, there's no excuse for that goal. That's a bad goal. That is a bad goal.
I thought you were going to give flowers to Josh Manson. You were texting about it last night, right? I know he had that in his bag.
I really didn't.
Big time goal too.
The minute that goal happened, I texted John Michael Lyles, who covers the team, thinking he would be probably doing the game for altitude. He literally sent me back a picture of him and his family in Hawaii. So he couldn't come on our show, and he wasn't fully tracking the game. But I asked him, like, are you surprised that Manson was able to do that? And he actually said, like, Sneaky has a lot of skill. He's coming out of the box here, and Nate, McKinnon hits him. I mean, this looks like a guy who gets a lot of breakaways. Like, I had a couple of breakaways in my life as a defenseman at high levels of hockey. And, I wasn't afraid to deke. And even I got to go in some shootouts in the American League. But mostly, like, I was trying to shoot for corners or making a hard deke and go onto the bar. Like, the 5-hole move, like, that's a slick forward move. That's like forwards are usually the ones who can pull off the little 5-hole move like that. And that was silky by Manson.
Well, his 5-hole move was it was kind of different. I feel like his stick was a little bit further on the outside. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a quick release 5-hole. It was kind of like,
well, he just opened him up and then he body. It was a
5-hole goal. I haven't really seen
very
before.
Purposeful. And I just, like I said, I didn't know Manson had that club in his bag. That was the text that I put into the group chat. I just wasn't expecting that. You think of Manson, you think of this hard-nosed guy, but look, he's been involved offensively in the series. I mean, even in game 1, he was up the ice. He's such a big, strong skater that he can be a difference maker. And we never talk about him because we talk about Taves and we talk about Makar, and Girard is out right now. But if Colorado starts getting healthy and they can get 900 goaltending, I still feel really good about Colorado winning some rounds in the playoffs. Like I really do. And who knows the deal with Hellebuck? I mean, I don't know if Chef Richard's here today or if he's in the chat. I don't know if I've seen him. But he's a Winnipegger and watches the team. And we have John Chan. I think John Chan is also, he doesn't live in Winnipeg, but I'm pretty sure he's usually pretty heavy Winnipeg with things that he talks about. I mean, what do you guys see out of Hellebuck? Like, what's the deal there? He just doesn't look ready to go. He looks uncomfortable. I saw someone said in the chat, time to go to Brossoit for game 3.
No way.
I don't think that maybe in other series, but not in this one.
I mean, listen, Brossoit had a really strong year, like he did.
But you got the Vezina goal.
Yeah, you're not doing it. Like, what
you're winning, or you're either winning or you're going down with Hellebuck as your goaltender.
Mm-hmm. And this is the old Steve Dangle. If you're a goaltender, tend the goal.
I mean, that one and the face-off one, that's the difference. It's a 2-goal game, right? Well, do they get an empty netter and make it 5? Did they make it 5-2, or was it? I did it end 4-2.
Final might have been 5-2.
I'm going to it. I'm pretty sure they banged in an empty netter. Yeah. So, but those are the differences. And then let's give a shout out to Val Nichushkin, who was maybe the best Av last night, 200 foot. He was really good last night. I mean, defensively, offensively, they're a different team when he's in the lineup. And he's battled, I think he's gone into the substance abuse program twice this year, or the player assistance program. So you never know. I shouldn't use the word substance abuse, because player assistance is the right word. You never know what a guy's dealing with now with player assistance. But he's had a bit of a bumpy road. Last year there was a weird thing in the playoffs where he, or in the end of the season in Seattle. But when he's in and he's feeling it and he's healthy, Nichushkin is a game changer for the Avs. He really is.
I'm happy that series is tied 1-1, honestly. I didn't want it to be 2-0. That's a series I really want to go 7 if it can. Like, I love watching both these teams play. And I'm not just saying that. Like, Winnipeg, when they came to New York, Colby, we talked about it when they played the Rangers. Like, I thought they were the better team in that game. I know we argued about it, that you heard from other people that the Rangers were better. They just had a fucking flurry of shots in the last 10 minutes and Hellebuyck shut them down. But I didn't watch a lot of Winnipeg prior to that game, and I was incredibly impressed with how well they zip around the puck in the offensive zone. But something they haven't really been doing as well, I feel like, is playing a little bit lockdown. Like, these games seem a little bit more wide open.
11 goals in 2 games. Colorado didn't score 11 goals against them all year.
It's a lot of it's more of a track meet than I think Winnipeg would like, right? Like, you haven't really seen that a lot in Winnipeg games this year. And the Colorado Avalanche are the last team that you want to be in a track meet against, right?
Yeah. Look, John Goyens actually did a series preview on the Daily Faceoffs on the DFO live show about a week ago, and he had all these clips of why Nathan MacKinnon basically had no success against them all year. And it's because the way they kind of back pressure to the house 5 men and then sort out better than anyone. And they're not doing that. You see some of these goals. You see the Avs getting on the inside, positioning towards the net. You see them getting opportunities in what I call the third circle, which, if you have the 2 face-off offensive zone dots, I say the third circle's the imaginary circle between them where a lot of the goals happen. And they're just not defending hard enough, probably because, you're sacrificing to try to keep up offensively. And Big E in the chat, honestly, was that goal off the face-off that bad? Vic, do we have that goal by any chance? The face-off goal. Here's why that's bad, okay? That's bad because you're an NHL goaltender and you're not ready on the face-off. I don't care how bang that is. If your stick is down on the ice there, you're probably going to save that. If you're crouched into your goaltending position, you're going to have an opportunity to react to that. But he's completely flat-footed. He's completely upright. I don't know if he's not tracking the face-off or tracking the drop, but yeah, that's a bad goal. Just like the Roslovic goal is a soft and a bad goal. You can't make those. You cannot let those in the playoffs. And I know Johnny
sick shot, though.
Johnny thinks that Roslovic goal is the greatest shot he's ever seen. It's
pretty damn good shot. But you can't discredit the shot.
Listen, that should not go in on an NHL goaltender in a playoff game.
But don't take away the
face-off one.
Don't take away the catch and release from Roslovic. Like, it could be a mistake on the goalie.
So it's so quick. Cheated. This video is so quick that you couldn't really tell. Maybe try to show it again, or I guess there might be a replay on this video that might give you a better clip. Here it is right here. So look at Hellebuyck. His stick's not up in the air. His stick's not fully down on the ice. It's up in the air a little bit. Yeah, Big E, I stand by what I said. This is a bad goal. Okay, you've got to be ready for these types of situations in a playoff game. The margin for error is way too thin. Okay, way too thin. And again, and we can. I know you want to finish your thought on the Roslovic goal. You again, sure, it's a good shot, but if a goaltender's not cheating and isn't opposite hand in the right way, like, that should be a routine save. That wasn't a bomb. That wasn't a one-timer. That wasn't
quick catch and release.
Yeah. So then
that's a tough shot to get off the way he got that off.
We can disagree, man. These are supposed to be the best goaltenders in the world. I think that has to be saved. I think it could be both.
I think both could be true. You can say Lindgren misplayed it, but you could also say Roslovic got a fucking great shot off.
His
No,
stick was not down. You're saying his stick is down. He puts it down and then he lifts it up.
you're talking about Hellbuck
I'm
now.
no, I'm talking. Yeah, Big E is
Yeah.
is arguing with me in the chat saying that his stick was down. No, his stick was not down. He puts it down and then he lifts it back up again. He's not ready. You can make whatever excuse you want. He's got to make that save. It's just the reality that has to be stopped. It's the difference between winning and losing in the playoffs.
He doesn't even like know what goes in. Like his reaction time was like a second late, But
Yeah, I'm not going to give goalies a free pass when they let in soft goals in the playoffs. It's just this is the NHL. This isn't the development league or the feel good league. It's the National Hockey League. It's win or you lose your job league. Like that's the NHL.
yeah, and Lindgren, back to the Roslovic shot, has been talked about cheating a little bit. The Panarin goal in game one. My buddy Stefan Rosner does a great job covering the Islanders. He was talking about how Lindgren was anticipating the pass, and last night, same thing. So Lindgren, perhaps, one of those goalies who, maybe hasn't been as good as he needs to for Washington to win. But
No,
let's move on to Vancouver. This game was the snooze fest of the night. As soon as the news came out about Demko, it kind of seemed like Vancouver would be in trouble. Casey DeSmith gets a start. Nashville played a really strong game, but I mean, these are two teams that combined for 34 shots on goal. The shots were 18-16 in favor of Vancouver. Elias Pettersson had a fucking tough night. Tough night. I think he had 9 shot attempts, 7 blocked, and 3 missed the net. So I think 0 shots on goal.
and I think he was a tick 3, wasn't he? A dash 2 or
maybe
3?
it was a -3.
Yeah, it was
-3.
a tick 3. Yep.
I know we had that tweet from Earth. But yeah, tough game. Philip Forsberg had a beautiful goal in that game. But now the question is, does Vancouver even stand a chance if Demko's fully? Is he completely out for the series? Was that confirmed, or there was a chance he was out?
Look, I'm not going to go into it. Frank reported yesterday that he would be out, and he's questionable basically to return for the series. Thatcher Demko and I share an agent, just to put that out there in the open. I'm not going to betray those guys' trust, but they're going to have to rally around Casey DeSmith. And the funny thing is Casey DeSmith is also represented by the same agent. So
really?
Thatcher Demko and Casey DeSmith are represented by the same guy, which is funny. I'm like, now you need your one client to hold it down so your other client can come back and save the day. I don't think we're going to see Demko again in the first round. I'm going to leave it at that. It's a really unfortunate thing to happen. Demko is the backbone. Honestly, I think Demko on a strong defensive team, we're probably talking about him as the best goaltender in the NHL. I mean, Vancouver's not the strongest team defensively. They never have been. They have not been this year. And I think Demko erases all of that. I believe if you put Demko on, again, one of the teams in the NHL that defends a little bit better, I think we could potentially be saying he's the best goalie in the league. I think him and Hellebuck are going to battle to see who starts for Team USA over the next couple of international tournaments. Because I think those two guys, and then throw Ottinger in the mix there. But I think Demko and Hellebuck are a little bit ahead of Jake Ottinger. But I think DeSmith can hold it down and play good hockey. He's done it for chunks this year. He did it all the way down the stretch for Vancouver. When Demko got hurt towards the end of the year. What I can tell you is the injuries are not related for what he missed at the end of the year for what he's dealing with now. So they're not necessarily related. It's not like he re-hurt what he was dealing with down the stretch. And I think Vancouver's got to play a little bit harder and a little bit heavier around their net. I think they need a little bit more help from their D-core. I don't think their D-core has been great, but I also only watched a period and a chunk of that game. Like I finally gave up and went to sleep last night. So I don't have a strong feel other than watching the condensed highlights this morning on that game. Just because it just got so late.
Yeah, I can tell you the topic of conversation was Elias Pettersson. It seemed like a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans were kind of turning on him, similar to what we've seen in Toronto happen with like a Nylander or a Marner. But Colby, this play, Pettersson turns it over and then, gets taken down, knocks into his own goalie here, puts the puck in his own net, essentially. Tough look for Elias Pettersson. And we talked about that contract. And when we did talk about his contract, one of the things that came up was, do you think the number is less because he hasn't had much playoff experience? The one playoff he's been in was the bubble, and he actually had, a pretty good performance in that series or a couple rounds. He had 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points in 17 games. But now we're looking at a guy making a little over 11 and a half. I think it was 11.6, the number. And he's got 2 games played and his -4 with only 2 shots on goal in this series so far. So, you're looking at a guy that you just signed for a very long term and put your, full trust into. And his first 2 games of this series are not looking good. So, what kind of message do you feel right now if you're a Canucks fan watching Elias Pettersson play?
Yeah, you don't feel good because you're just wondering, well, what are you doing? If you're not scoring, how are you helping the team? It's the old, what's your B game conversation? Yeah. What's Elias Pettersson's B game? I mean, that clip, he makes 3 errors on that clip. Like I jokingly said to you last night, he should be -3 on that play alone. He literally made 3 errors on the same play and showed such a lack of effort and such a lack of conviction on that play, and he just looks disinterested. And so I think that's a bad look for him. I see people saying, the Preds are the favorites now, and Vancouver's out of it. I'm not there yet. I'm really not. I think Casey DeSmith is
back home.
That's
a tough building, dude.
I understand. I've called games in Nashville before in the playoffs. I was there for a game 7 against Winnipeg. I did radio for Westwood 1 that year. And you know what? Winnipeg scored a goal early and took the Nashville crowd out of it. Pekka Rinne was still their goaltender. They get a soft goal early. Bridgestone was silent. Okay. Silent. And look, don't discredit how hard Vancouver is to play in either. I mean, they are. Yeah. It is a national holiday, and it is a holiday in Vancouver for a playoff game. So
I saw people lifting a fake cup after their game 1 win.
Yeah. I'm not putting a nail in their coffin yet. I think Vancouver has more to give, more fight to give. I think this series now becomes a major toss-up. I think if Demko plays, it's not a toss-up. And we'll see what happens. Like I'm not ready to abandon or feel nervous about my pick at 1-1 when, again, I do think Casey DeSmith is a viable option in a stopgap for the next 10 days or whatever it will be until hopefully his team can reel off 3 more wins. And that's just where I'm at with it.
And you got to have a lot of faith in Rick Tocchet, who should be the Jack Adams winner this year. I imagine he'll find ways for his team to adjust. I think I had Vancouver in 7 in this series too. And I'll stick with that as well. I want to see Vancouver win. I really do like Quinn Hughes a lot, and the guys they have there. So
what? My only beef with Vancouver winning is like the late nights, these West Coast games.
Yeah, but either way, like
I like Nashville more because they're in the central time zone. So
yeah, but they'd play like Winnipeg, or they played Edmonton or LA. So like
it's gonna stay west, and it's not gonna
have
LA,
late starts.
So. All right, let's get into some previews for tonight.
Yeah, but before we do that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, to our show. These go a very long way. We really appreciate all of you guys in the chat, everyone that tunes in every morning. This is something that Colby and I love doing, and Vic as well. Our group chat is constantly going all day, all night. I think I finally shut my eyes at 2 a.m. last night. So we love doing this, not only, for everyone here, but with all you guys. We feel like this is kind of a collective group effort. So if you guys can please like and subscribe the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, that would be amazing. But also, let's go into our
give us reviews too. Give us reviews.
Yes.
Like we want to see the reviews, and if you leave reviews, we'll
even if they're hateful toward me or Colby. Kidding, don't do that.
Well, they can be hateful towards Johnny. If you have a hateful one towards me, don't leave it. Just shove it up your ass, okay?
All right, let's get into
I get enough online hate. I don't need review hate, okay?
And DMs for my mom. But let's get into our Parasso playoff preview. The most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Parasso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps. Hockey15. Colby, you got a nice package yesterday from Parasso.
I did. I got a nice care package from Parasso, and I got to tell you, the packaging, it's so
It's
like
beautiful.
elegant and old
Mhm.
school. I feel like I'm shopping in like a little boutique in, in Italy, right? It has that, elegant feel. And now I like, there's a couple of products that I can use, but then there's also a couple that I really can't, just because I'm not really growing it out. So maybe we got to find someone that I can share a couple of these products with to let them give us some good product reviews. But I will say this: the products. I mean, it just feels very premium. Like, I feel like now I need to grow a beard out and like go smoke a cigar and hang out at like a supper club, so I can tell people about my grooming products.
I just want to address actually some questions in the chat before we move on to the games tonight. But first, Jeremiah actually said, you can silence notifications. I felt bad. He responded to me at 9:35 Alaska time, which was like 1:35 a.m. New York time. Yeah, I was texting with Jeremiah last night till like 2 a.m. And I was like, I gotta go to fucking bed, man. But Jeremiah and I will talk later. And then we actually have a question from Sean Vergara, first time listener. How could you pick Tampa over Florida? Panthers have been solid all year. I got to understand that pick. So before we just get into tonight's game, I just want to talk about that too, because I've gotten a lot of that question. And I feel like people have said, how could you bet against the Panthers with how good they were last year and how good they were this year? But the amount of times that I've bet against Tampa and been wrong, I couldn't do that again. Like, to me, betting against Tampa just over the last 4 years has bitten me in the ass more than anything else in the world. And that was my thought. Like, I'm not counting this team out that's been to 3 Stanley Cup finals in the last 4 years over a team that went on a great run last year. Sure, Florida might be the deeper team, but Tampa has done it for way longer and way more consistently. And that was my thought process behind that pick. Like, we're still talking about Nikita Kucherov, who's had an MVP season, Victor Hedman, Stamkos 40 goals, Braden Point flirting with 50 goals, Vasilevsky in net, like Duclair, great addition at the deadline. Like, this Tampa team was dangerous. So that's how I felt about it. Just to address a first-time listener, we're happy you're here, Sean. But Colby, I don't know if you want to touch on that before we get into tonight's games.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at the Daily Faceoff crew and you look at even ESPN crew, TNT crew, everybody showing their picks, I think it's really split. I mean, more people in our group, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people pick Tampa and 3 people pick Florida. And I think this is a little bit of an indication of how Tampa played down the stretch and the belief that Tampa knows how to get it done in the playoffs. And then you mirror that with the fact that, look, Florida went on a run last year deep into the summer. That takes a lot out of you. This is the time of year when you really start to feel it. Tampa Bay, they were sleepy the Panthers played sleepy the last month of the season. And I think that threw a lot of people off. I know for me personally, I was concerned. Were they going to just be able to flip the switch? They have. They look like the team that was so dominant, let's say 2 months ago and 3 months ago around the trade deadline, or even before, when everyone was like, Florida is the runaway favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. And then, the last month or 6 weeks of the season, they just were very, very sleepy. And so I think that kind of threw a lot of people off. And again, I guess I had more faith in Vasilevsky and Kucherov and Bob. Like, Bob, to me, it can be a wild card. Who are you getting, Bob? And the difference is the saves that he makes last night. I mean, this could easily be 1-1 going back to Tampa. The last thing I will say about it, and then we got to get into our Pro-Rasso playoff preview and look at tonight's games.
There is some breaking news as well, by the way. But
okay. What's the breaking news? Go.
Brett Pesce out for round 1 for the Canes. So Tony DeAngelo or Scott Morrow now could be stepping in on their blue line.
Yeah, I gotta think it's Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah,
I gotta think they bring in Tony DeAngelo, and I did see there was some questions about Pesce and what's going on there with him. So
lower body injury.
That's big news. But again, you look at the way Carolina plays.
Done. Yeah,
they're a factory. Like, they're going to be okay. I mean, Pesce's really good, but they're going to be okay. So we appreciate the fact that you're a first time listener / watcher of the show. You're not always going to agree with us, especially me, most likely. But look, that's how we felt when we picked. And as Frank Saravalli says beautifully, if you're confident in your picks, well, then you're probably wrong. because the NHL, I mean, look, I was talking to Paul Stasny last night because I wanted him to come on our show today, having played in Winnipeg and Colorado. Thought he would have been a great guest, and he's just not ready to do anything media related. We even tried to get him to do some Frozen Four stuff with us for ESPN because Denver was in it. He's a national champ, and Stas just wants to be left alone. He does not want to be in the spotlight. But even he said, it's hard to pick these series. It's hard to handicap these series. It's just very, very close this year. And there's a lot of teams that could win. Everybody picked Dallas to win the cup, and Dallas is down 1-0 to Vegas right now. So let's look ahead into tonight. Keep your questions coming. Look, we'll keep the show going a little longer if we have to today,
Yeah.
Johnny. I don't know if you've got to get anywhere
No,
to
I'm
any
chilling.
skates or whatever.
I'm good.
I hear my little one upstairs probably starting to get antsy, waiting for me to be done the show. So let's keep buzzing along.
All right, we got Boston and Toronto. The series is now shifting back to Toronto. Jeremy Swayman should be in goal. I know that scares the shit out of our producer, Vic. That's the only person who scares him in the world right now is Jeremy Swayman. But what do you think happens in this game? Do we see Willie Nylander? Can Pastrnak match Matthews' Game 2 performance? What are we expecting tonight from the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because it's been pretty much a flip-flop in the first two games.
I think Toronto's going to win tonight. I really do. I think especially if they get Nylander back into the lineup, I think they're going to have a huge boost from that. I think Matthews has got to be feeling really good about himself. I think he's one of those guys that feeds off positive energy in the media and in the crowd. And there's a lot of positive energy going about the way he played in Game 2.
That's what Marner.
I think Samsonov should feel confident about his game. I think Toronto now has more favorable matchups. They get that last change, so they can kind of try to get that, some matchups against Boston's bottom six, third pair, whatever the case may be. Andrew Peeke now out of the lineup, so Parker Wotherspoon probably comes in. I think the big thing for Boston, if they can't figure out the power play, and I've been yelling and screaming about putting Shattenkirk up on the top unit, but if Pasta doesn't start attacking, okay.
Well, they had that nice power play goal in Game 2, right? Geeky, that backdoor pass.
But I'm talking about the Pasta unit, okay? I'm talking about their golden boy unit, right? And I think I'd put James Van Riemsdyk in the lineup over Pat Maroon. I really would.
Really?
I know Maroon's a winner, but I think you're hurting your power play. If you have James Van Riemsdyk as your net front guy on the power play, he can handle the puck better than Maroon. He's a lefty, so he can move up into the hash mark. And if Pasta wants to try to make that bumper play where Maroon's not really doing that, Maroon is literally standing in front of the goaltender. It's a little one-dimensional. I think Van Riemsdyk helps you get in cleaner as well. It's just my opinion. It's what I would do. Like, how much of an impact is Maroon really having? Like, I don't foresee him and Reeves fighting. And I think Reeves has probably been the better fourth liner of the two so far in the series. But I think Toronto gets a win tonight. I really do. I think they flip the script and they take home ice back, basically take home ice advantage tonight with a win.
Imagine the headline though if Pat Maroon gets scratched. Oof, that'd be rough.
Well, look,
right?
he didn't play more than 2-3 games at the end of the year. Like, maybe you take this as an opportunity to get Van Riemsdyk in, get a different look, and if it doesn't work out, you go back to Maroon in Game 4. Again, these guys that are playing 6 to 8 minutes, like, their impact is not what it could be at 13 minutes, 14 minutes. Like, I think Van Riemsdyk can give you 14 minutes, 15 minutes.
But does it have to be Maroon that comes out? Because I feel like Maroon's presence in the room also is a big factor. No.
Yeah, but they have leaders in the room. Brad Marchand's won a Stanley Cup. Kevin Shattenkirk's a leader, won a Stanley Cup. Charlie McAvoy. I mean, these guys all have presence. I don't think presence is a big deal. And I think you can sell it as like, we're basically giving Maroon a night down because of his injuries and what he's dealt with. Yeah, I would keep Beecher in. I like what Beecher's done. And here's the other thing. Beecher wins faceoffs. Okay. Beecher's good in the dot, and Beecher has speed. You need speed against Toronto. So I hope Nylander's back, though. I really do. I want to see this guy, playing in playoffs.
And okay, so I know I asked you who you think wins, but which team do you think is better for the drama to like win or lose? Like if Swayman loses tonight, or I guess if Swayman wins tonight, The drama going to game 4, I feel like, is better.
Are you going back to Ullmark in game 4?
That's why I kind of want Boston to win tonight, even though I want
Just to
Toronto
see
to win
what
the series.
happens. Yeah.
Just for the drama. Like, I think while I do think that drama is so stupid because, I was actually talking about this with Larry Brooks the other day. Boston's decision on their starting goalie has no effect on Toronto. It's just affecting the Boston fans, and I feel like the Boston media. Toronto's prepared for either goalie. So the longer they take to decide on who their starting goalie is, what the fuck are you cracking up about?
Big E says Johnny lives for being in the room with the smiley emoji face.
I am big on the room. I love the locker room. What the hell, guys? What are you coming at me for?
He likes to go in the room as a media guy too and sit in people's stalls. And then when he goes back in, guys like Trocheck give him the dirty eye.
I don't sit down when I'm near Vinny, though. I don't do it. But out of respect.
All right. So everyone in the chat, drop your predictions in the chat. We want to see give us your 2 predictions, right? We want to see who you think's going to win. And then I want to see if they win, who starts in goal for Boston in game 4. Those are our 2 questions we're giving you guys into the chat for predictions. And we're going to move on to the Vegas-Dallas game, the series that.
Well, we have to say it. No, I'm saying if Boston wins, Swayman gets game 4 start. I guess we can talk about it tomorrow, but
I think Toronto wins tonight, and then I think you see Ullmark in game 4. So I already said that. So VGK Dallas, the big boy series. Dallas, do they even things up tonight? Does I saw Singsy. Singsy's been on a roll with spleen. He's calling it spleen gate now. I hope we gotta.
Why am I getting chirped so hard right now?
Kitten Chicklets needs to get Singsy and Mark Stone on the show this summer together, maybe for like a sandbagger to let Singsy and Spleengate get worked out face to face because he's just on one about that.
Mm-hmm. So this game tonight, we're calling it a must win for Dallas, right? You can't go down 2-0 going back to Vegas. It's never a good sign. But also, if anyone can remember back to last year's playoffs, Jay Gottinger was.
I'm not calling it a must win, by the way. I'm not agreeable with that whatsoever.
How are you not calling this a must win?
Because going down 0-2 in the playoffs is
going back to Vegas.
It's not the end of the world. Teams do it. It's going down 0-3. Sure, you're screwed. But when you're the Dallas Stars and you've been as good as you've been all year and you have the firepower that you have and you have the goaltender that can get hot, it's just like Tampa. Why would you feel like you're ever out of a series?
Because Tampa's going home.
The players I'm just saying it's about roster to me. Okay. Like, why would you feel like you can't come back from 0-2 if you're the Dallas Stars? I'm just saying, sure. Yeah. Do they want to win and make it 1-1? But is it a must win?
I'm not
labeling it a must win.
I don't think Dallas is winning 4 out of 5 games against Vegas, especially when 3 of those games are on the road.
I'm not calling it a must win. I'm not calling it a must win. They of course they'd like to split and go home or go to Vegas 1-1.
I think you're underestimating Vegas.
I'm not underestimating a team that's as good as the Dallas Stars and saying that you're giving them a must win in game 2 of a best of 7.
When you're on home,
I'll say it's a must win when you're down 0-2 and you can't go down 0-3. That's when I'll call for a must win, but I'm not calling for it when it's 1-0 in a series.
I think Dallas being on home ice, if they were to go down 2-0 going back to Vegas, I don't see them taking 2 games in a row in Vegas. I don't see that happening. I don't, especially with all the pressure in the world. What's the chat saying about that?
They're arguing about Stone.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Singsy's diagnosing. People are chirping. They're talking about. They're all talking about Stone and not the must win. Down 3-0 is a must win, Jeremiah.
Yeah, well, Jeremiah, I knew he would have said that, but Jay Gottinger, obviously has to be better in this game. There you go. Singsy agrees. Ottinger obviously was not the Ottinger we've seen, previously in game 1. But I think if you look back to last year's playoffs, the conversation a couple years ago was how good Vasilevsky was in games after a loss. That was Ottinger last year. I don't have the exact record up from last year's playoffs, but I know it was, the numbers were pretty insane. Ottinger in games following a loss. So to me, Dallas on home ice, the desperation is going to be there. How does Vegas measure it? Colby, did you say you liked Vegas to win tonight, though, before we started the show?
No, I didn't say that, but I think Dallas evens up the series tonight. I really do.
Mhm.
I think you get a big response out of those guys. I don't think Dallas is going to go into. I don't think Vegas goes into Dallas and goes home. Goes home up 2. I think you're going to see this series go back and forth until we get to Game 7, and then we'll see who steps up bigger time in Game 7. But again, one game, right? It's one game. Vegas won a cup last year, and they've got all their guns, right? It's one game, and we'll see. We'll see if Carlson and Marchessault and Eichel keep back pressuring and defending. We'll see. Is it Logan Thompson again? It obviously will be. They're not going to take him out after a win, but what kind of effort are you getting in goal from Logan Thompson? So I think Dallas evens it up tonight. And then I think we go and see them go back to the Fortress at 1-1. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Charles Ferris said the Rangers dropped 2-0 against New Jersey last year. We didn't see that coming, but the Rangers are not Vegas. Vegas is a much better team. Last year, at least, the Rangers last year were a disaster. But
all right, let's get to our. Go ahead.
What? No, go.
I was just gonna say, let's get to our bet. Let's get to our Betway bet of the day. Because it's part of this LA Edmonton series, and our partners at Betway are still offering this great promotion, of covering a $200 bet. You can bet as much as you want, but Betway will reimburse you up to $200 on your first bet. The way you do that is create an account using the QR code on our screen. Once you activate and get through with that account, you make your bet. If it doesn't work out, they'll automatically put it back into your account. You can use that free $200 to continue to bet on games. We've got a good slate just about every night here for the next couple of weeks of the first round, where it's game after game. The offer is only available outside of Ontario. Please play responsibly as always. And look, take advantage, okay? Take advantage of the opportunities to continue to make bets and get reimbursements from our partners at Betway. And here's what we're going. We're going back to the well with a Leon Draisaitl anytime goal plus 125. It hit for us the other night. He's just absolutely killed the LA Kings in the playoffs. The Edmonton Oilers are going to score goals, okay? It's never going to be their problem. I like Draisaitl to do it again. I like that it's at plus 125. Get on with us. Let's go for another hit. We missed last night, okay? We didn't hit our bet last night, but 2 nights ago, Draisaitl cashed in for us at plus 125. So, Johnny, looking at that series, looking ahead to tonight, who do you like in this game, and what needs to happen differently for either team, really? Because I have thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers, even though they won.
I have no concerns about the Oilers tonight. If Vegas scores first, I think that's huge. I think Vegas has to, or not Vegas, excuse me, LA. LA needs to score the first goal, I think, in this game, so they can somewhat play a little more shut down and not chase the game. In game 1, they were chasing because they got down early and they got down pretty deep. And obviously when you have a lead, you want to try to find a way to slow Edmonton down with how well they skate and the pace they play at. McDavid, I think, and Draisaitl are too much. Even Zach Hyman. I don't see LA really handling them on the road. To me, this is all Edmonton all the way. But if I'm LA, I'm focusing on that first goal tonight. And, they could drop back in that 1-3-1, sure. But to me, Edmonton has too much speed through the neutral zone to have it really be that much of an effect. What do you think? Like we talked about it the other day, if there's one team that can really break through the 1-3-1, it's Edmonton with their skating.
Yeah, and I'm not, honestly, this is probably unfair, but I'm not even focused on LA. I don't look at them as a team that really has that much of an opportunity in this series. What I'm focused on, though, is I'm focused on how is Edmonton going to play when they get up? Like, what I didn't like about Edmonton the other night is they came out with their hair on fire, and then they got a little loosey-goosey with the puck. And we all know Edmonton can score, but don't try to outscore your problems, because you can take advantage of a team that's, not as deep on the back end, doesn't have a star goaltender. And so, start buckling down, because as you get into rounds 2 or hopefully round 3 for the Edmonton Oilers, that you're going to need that type of hockey, and you're going to need, just to think a little bit more on the defensive side of the puck, think a little bit more about puck management between the blue lines. Don't give the LA Kings life. I was talking to some of our guys from, Oilers Nation yesterday, actually, and they agreed. Like, why give LA life? Why let them even feel like they're in the series? They had an opportunity to
That's what's
really,
happened the last 2 years.
they had an opportunity in game one to basically take the will away from the LA Kings. So when the LA Kings are showing up, they're sitting there saying, we got to keep playing against this team for another week. We don't want that. And so, that's what Edmonton needs to do. Don't fuck around and, don't mismanage pucks. Like, we know you can score 5, win 5-0 if you're going to score, win 5-1. Don't let a team crawl back into a game and get 4 goals against you. And so that's what I'm looking at tonight. Edmonton's winning this series just on talent, but talent's not going to get you through 3-4 rounds of the playoffs.
No, and I think putting LA away early just also builds so much confidence than having a series drag out, right? Like, how many times do you see a team that can put away a series in 4 or 5 games, then it goes to 6 or 7, and it affects them in the long run, right? Like, to me, it's like sending a message for Edmonton that, hey, we can do this. We can put teams away. And, McDavid shows up in game 1, 5 assists. Draisaitl scores that big goal, Hyman hat trick. Just a quick stat here. Leon Draisaitl had the most, or NHL record for most assists in a playoff series with 15 in 5 games against Calgary in 2022. Does McDavid have a chance to touch 15 assists in this series, already 5 through 1 game? Yes, right? You have to.
I think everything's always on the table with McDavid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. But we both agree on this series. Like, LA, this one should be done in 5.
Yeah, it should be. But Edmonton, again, they get to decide if this is a 4 to 5 game series or if it's a 6 or 7 game series. It's not LA who will make that decision. It's Edmonton. Mm-hmm. I think LA is a step ahead of Washington and the Islanders, but I think that it's a similar situation where I think if you look at the 16 playoff teams, there's probably 13 teams you could make a case for to win a cup. And then there's those 3 that you really have a hard time making a case for to win a Stanley Cup. So look, we're going to keep up this format of, talking about last night versus talking about the look ahead. We will have a guest tomorrow coming on the show, actually Glenn Heffernan, who's the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, which is kind of the main feeder to Division I in the US, which obviously then feeds the NHL. And, he's going to bring a bunch of stats about guys that are playing in the NHL that have come through that league. And we're going to pick his brain about some of the different things happening in his playoffs. So we'll get a little bit of a different perspective as to, because it's playoff time for everyone. College hockey's over, but the USHL playoffs are going on. The American Hockey League playoffs are starting. The CHL playoffs are starting to push towards a Memorial Cup. So, it's playoff season in hockey, and, he'll come on about 9:30 tomorrow. So we'll spend the first half of the show. We'll spend the first half of the show, going through what happens tonight. We'll get him on. We'll talk a little bit. And I actually got a message from Eric Lacroix, and I think hockey fans should know that name. His family's been pretty synonymous with the Colorado Avalanche for a long time. He played for the Avalanche, does media out in Colorado now. He actually reached out to me and said that, he listens to our show and he'd love to come on to talk about this Jets Avs series. So next week, we'll definitely get Eric Lacroix on to talk about this series because, he's kind of got a front row seat. And to be honest, like, my favorite type of person to bring on any show is former players, not even current players, because former players will say whatever. They're not worried about, bulletin board material or teammates giving you shit anymore. So we'll definitely get Eric on the show if it works out schedule wise next week, especially as this Colorado Winnipeg series moves on. So final word, Johnny.
I got nothing, man. Great show today. Great stuff from the chat. And we'll need to chat.
Our chat is extending our
today.
show. The chat is extending our show 45 extra minutes.
This
like
hour
we're going
and
almost an hour and a half today because the chat is just absolutely stirring it up and pushing our show to be much longer than we originally planned. So Keep it going. And
but also fuck you to everyone who chirped me for being wrong about the Rempe penalty.
Colby, do you think the Titans can come back against Maryland in the North American League playoffs? Yeah, I do. I think that, you look at the way that they lost those games. I think, look, and I actually addressed the team earlier this week, and I told the guys, like, you can't really be looking at it as you need to win the next 3 because they're down 0-2 in a best of 5. You got to focus on starting well on a home game on Friday night. Win the first 5 minutes. Win the first period. When you try to look at winning 3 in a row, it seems like an impossible mountain to climb. So break that up into really small intervals and try to win those intervals. And then all of a sudden, you're going to look up and realize you're halfway up the mountain of winning 3 in a row. So I do think they can. I think it'll be really hard. Weinberg 85, winning 3 in a row against a good team is always challenging, but I'll be pulling for those guys and I'll be following their games this weekend.
You know what's funny about that, Colby? I actually forgot about it till just now. I was talking the other day to Tarek El-Bashir with Monumental Sports for Washington and does some stuff with TNT. His son is on the Maryland Black Bears playing against the Titans. So we were talking about that series. He's actually committed to Army.
Did he agree that should have been icing in overtime or what?
I didn't ask about a specific play, but it's cool.
By the way,
talking about
there's reports out there now that William Nylander will be in the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So those reports are floating around from reputable sources. Thank you for the assist on that, Jeremiah. We appreciate that. So that'll be great. Singsy's asking who found the matzah. Johnny definitely did not find the matzah. So hey, look. Thank you to everyone today. Great energy in the chat. Like I said, you extended our show well beyond the normal time frame. Vic on the money today, as always. I know we're keeping you up late. You're burning it at both ends because you're up an hour before we are in the morning, getting the show ready. And we'll be back tomorrow. Come tomorrow. It'll be an interesting show tomorrow because we'll have a lot of NHL, and then we're going to get a commissioner of the #1 junior league in the United States. So it's just going to be good to get his perspective on really the state of hockey in general. So thanks to everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Saravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.